Obviously, they'll never admit it, but that's the real reason Jeffrey and Bungle fell out.
Unbelievable.
You're listening to the Beat Motel podcast, and we need to warn you that we like to use words like fuck, shit, and syndicalist, bounty scrutux, angry flap, and filth biscuits. And we don't often bleep those words out, apart from because we're not complete animals. But if you understand that and you like music, then listen on. Hey, as an older recording of me just said, this is Beat Motel Podcast, the podcast that is notionally about music, but often talks about a load of other crap. Dr. Sam is unavailable this week because of matters of, I don't know, no importance to me, so fuck him. So I've got a guest host this week. I have James Kindred. Mr. James, how are you? Well, first time guest host.
Hello. How are you? I'm good. It's good to be here. It's good to be on the other side. Well, it's the same side, but it's the other side of the podcasting world, and have someone else running the show, which is quite nice.
It is nice when that happens, isn't it? So listeners, I've known James for, I don't know, since the early 90s, probably. Both musicians, both in bands, both in Ipswich, both doing weird things with our lives. And today, part of those weird things with our lives involves talking about music. And we like to start every episode just to set the scene with a riff of the week. So first of all, James, I'm going to play your riff of the week, and it's this. You know what it is. That's filthy. Yeah. Filthy. What is that? Who's that? So, what's the song?
That's ZZ Top, and it's a song called Precious and Grace, and it's off their second album, which is called Tres Hombres, or Three Men.
Okay.
Which is a follow-up of the simply named albums of ZZ Top's first album, and then just describing what they are.
Just
on the second album is Three Men.
What year is that?
Good question. 74, I think.
74, really?
And it's the first couple of albums of ZZ Top was very kind of straight down the line Texas blues, but kind of slower and filthier, and then they kind of went into I think their third album might have been called Fandango, and then it kind of went into the
what's that describing?
I have no idea. And that goes into that's more the ZZ Top that people knew from the 80s with the kind of hot rod car and the fluffy guitars and the long beards. But first two album, there was no long beards. Billy Gibbons had come from another band and was a kind of session player and just wanted to play kind of good, filthy blues, and got the two other guys and just started making kind of what is the foundation for, I think, kind of stoner rock. And it was about kind of just going out, getting high, drinking beers and having a good time. And it was kind of far simpler than the characters that they became. And I just think it's kind of really interesting period of music where there's that sort of thing happening and Sabbath happening over here. And no one really sees ZZ Top as the kind of stoner rock band, but their first two albums are just kind of like those sorts of riffs and that sort of thing happening is like baseline of what Queens of the Stone Age and Queens of the Stone Age covered that on Lullabies to Paralyze as well, and Billy Gibbons played on that album, so there's a lot of influence there. And I just love that era of ZZ Top, and that's why he's called Reverend Billy Gibbons. I found out recently.
Right.
He started selling slippers on. He used to listen to Mexican border radio station. There's always have kind of adverts on there, and his friend at the port had just had a delivery of Chinese slippers, and he set up an advert as the Reverend Willie G selling thought-provoking soul slippers.
Right.
And it was send $5 to the Reverend Willie G at this address, and he had like a lot of money turn up in a sack, and then was like, oh wow, that's a good way to make some money.
That works.
It's just kind of prior to getting into bands and touring and that sort of thing. But that sort of mindset is right up my street.
I think he's an interesting guy because there's plenty of legends around ZZ Top, but one of the ones that I think I've mentioned on this podcast before is that they used to tour the States as the Zombies. I think it was the Zombies because no one in America, Zombies had a massive hit album. No one in America actually knew what the Zombies looked like. So they were like, I reckon we can probably tell people we're the Zombies because so little information pre-internet. And obviously I'm guessing this, I was going to say, I'm guessing it was pre-beards, but beards wouldn't have made any difference, would they? Two guys turn up with massive beards. And it wouldn't be a cliche podcast if we didn't mention the only one without a beard was the drummer who was called Mr. Beard.
Frank Beard,
yeah. They wouldn't have known anyway, would they?
No. It's if you're into that kind of music and even the kind of doom sludge stuff, thoroughly recommend the second album in particular, Tres Hombres by ZZ Top should be on your list.
It is going to be on my list because it keeps on popping up in my world. I've heard a few bits on other podcasts and on Six Music or something like that, and just kind of gone, that sounds great. And listening to it now with like studio headphones, even the stereo on it's interesting. It's got that kind of that swing, that slightly offbeat kind of swing between the two guitar tracks. Anyway, thank you for bringing that into my life. I don't know if you'll thank me for bringing my riff of the week into your life or not. But my riff of the week is this.
Oh, yeah. Now, that's awesome.
It's potentially problematic, and I'll explain why. Nothing to do with politics or anything like that. This is
it's not Lost Prophets, is it?
No. I might have to beep that out. This is a band called Agriculture, who I've talked about quite a lot on this podcast. Most recently, when we did an episode where the theme was bands with terrible names. So they're Agriculture, and the reason I say it's problematic, you like that. If you look up other stuff they've done, I don't know what you'll make of it because
really,
until the new album, they're a black metal band, and they're sort of queercore black metal. Their t-shirts say, "I love listening to the queer black metal noise of Agriculture" in massive letters across the. I can't remember if it's the front or the back. And I last saw them at a venue called the Black Heart in Camden, which must be a capacity. This is within the last year. It must be a capacity of 80 at a push. And they were a bit more sort of trad black metal, like really fast, but really heavy black metal, because there's like that really thin, wispy nonsense. So proper powerful. And then this album's come out, and that track especially is called Bodhid Armor. I don't know, Bodhidarma. That came out, and the drum start, I was thinking, I know what's coming next, like, and then that riff comes out of it. And you're like, whoa! Okay, here we go.
I really like that. The first band that came to mind when I heard that was Godsmack.
Okay.
And there when they were kind of the heavier end of what they were doing, but that sort of stuff is right up my street, like Chevelle and Deftones, earlier Deftones stuff, where it went slightly less melodic Deftones stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Love all that stuff. So yeah, and I do love bands with names that kind of do sound like they do. So like Truck Fighters. Or,
oh wow, Truck Fighters. There's a name I've not heard for many years.
Or Mastodon, which we're going to talk about in a bit. Or what was the Monster Truck? Mm-hmm. You kind of like, what do they sound like? Well, they're called Monster Truck. Agriculture to me is kind of just like heavy machinery.
I've never seen it that way before. Yeah,
right. I mean, some people might think Agriculture is like grazing cows and cornfields and kind of.
No, that's not agriculture. That's
that's a very good point. You're quite right.
Cattle. I don't know. I can't think what the term is.
Yes, but no, agriculture to me is kind of big machinery, processing stuff.
So I can see that, but the new album is the other reason I like it is I like bands that are prepared to absolutely chuck a curveball at people who like them. So Agriculture have been around. They're sort of one of those bands that's done an album and some decent EPs, but the second album has come out pretty hot on the heels of the first. Again, that's unusual these days. But much like, have you heard of Deaf Heaven?
No.
Okay, so Deaf Heaven they started this sort of American black metal resurgence, and they got a lot of criticism for being like trendy black metal. Like people who are like only listen to black metal tend to be a miserable bunch of fuckers, and if anything deviates in any way, they're like, no, that's not true metal. So Deaf Heaven with this band, great set of albums, and then the fourth album was a bit more shoegaze and a bit piano-y and just nothing like the previous ones. And I think especially for metal bands, that's a brave thing to do, and it's something I really like. I mean, Deaf Heaven kind of went back to doing the black metal stuff, but they gave it a go. So I like the fact Agriculture with this album have gone, we're just going to do stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to try and track that down and have a proper listen.
Yeah, the album before was the one I really, really, really love. But I've played bits of that far too many times on this podcast. Right. So let's move on to our theme. And our theme, I think you came up with our theme, James. What's our theme this week?
It's kind of concept albums.
I put down odd
concept albums. Yes, sorry, but yeah, or to me, concept albums.
Or just concept albums. Judgmental fucker.
Yeah.
Right, so to kick off the theme, here is your first choice. Anyone who's not heard the podcast before, we get 4 choices each. We can only play a roughly 30 seconds, which used to be to try and avoid copyright strikes. We get copyright hits like every episode now from YouTube, but the outcome of the copyright strikes is normally your content won't be heard in Belarus or Russia. And I'm not sure that's going to massively impact us, so I just let it roll. You got many fans in Russia or Belarus, James?
Not that I'm aware of. Apologies if there are. But
so I like the positivity there. There might be.
You never know. You never know.
Right then, so here's your first choice. Just no idea what was coming next with that. I mean, you never do with. Tell us who it is, but before we start talking about it.
So that's Mastodon's album "Crack the Sky," and there's the last song on the album is called "The Last Baron," and it takes sideways movements into progressive jazz, and it's like I can't remember how long it is. It's like 11 minutes long.
You never want to hear that. You never want to see that written down, but in practice, it's not always that bad.
It's a huge left turn, and it's like I remember the first time I'd listened to the album and I'd heard a couple of tracks from it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go end to end, and then kind of going on this journey through this concept album, and then hearing The Last Baron, and it just going everywhere and all over the place. And you kind of, I like watching reaction videos of people listening to albums, and whenever people listen to Crack the Sky, they'll kind of go, oh, it's, kind of solid, amazing album, and then they'll get to The Last Baron, and it's just like, okay, everyone, let's just throw all of our musical influences into a hat and see what comes out.
So what's the concept of the album as a whole?
Okay, brace yourself.
Okay, I'm ready.
So there's 2 concepts, I suppose. The one is called Crack the Sky, Skye, because the drummer's sister was called Sky, and she very sadly took her own life when she was young. And part of it is kind of processing that and there's a thread of that goes through the album and deals with loss and deals with acceptance and deals with kind of all of the grief that goes with that. Alongside that is a narrative about a boy that is bound to a wheelchair, and he learns to astral project, so he can learn to leave the body that doesn't work for him and send himself to the astral plane, but he gets stuck there. And the whole story is about him leaving his body, getting stuck in the astral plane, and then Rasputin, the Russian mad priest, finds him, and they merge souls. But then that's just while Rasputin's trying, the Russians are trying to kill him, and it ends up with him saving the boy and sending him back to the astral plane and making a martyr of himself in the process. And it leaves it kind of the end of the album is, you don't really know if the boy makes it back or not, and it leaves it kind of open ended of what you think happens. But I just love the idea of, okay, we need to make an album that deals with kind of grief and loss and deal with all of that, but also let's get Rasputin into this and start throwing some historical Russian figures around and boys bound to wheelchairs and transcending the astral plane.
It's a Hollywood story old as time. It's been told again and again. I mean, I do like that kind of batshit storytelling, because it is at this point. But Mastodon, were they into their imperial phase, or that phase that bands get where they're kind of safe? You know, you've lasted a few albums. You can pretty much do what you want. You're not going to disappear now.
I think it was probably, I mean, they moved from being far heavier and probably just as experimental with what they were doing, and moving to more, some would say, a less heavy, more commercial space. I don't necessarily agree with that on that album. Probably when they got to like 2017, Emperor of the Sound, might be 2018, was more commercial. They were kind of Grammy courting, and that sort of thing by that point. But I think with all of the band's musical influences and musical styles, they were keen to try and move out of just being a metal band and do something a little bit more experimental and a bit more varied and kind of far-reaching.
It really fascinates me with metal, because I wasn't into metal, certainly not when I first met you. It's relatively, well, it's probably getting on 20 years now, that it fascinates me that, for one thing, bands sometimes just stick with the sound. There's a band, or this band, I'm wearing a Finnish band called Wolfheart, who I really, really like, but their sound doesn't really evolve. They've just got a sound that's great, and they've just pummeled out a bunch of albums that are consistently absolutely excellent. I tell a lie, they have evolved. I use Tidal for listening to music, and the algorithm understands me better than anyone now. And it played me a new release by Wolfheart, and it was an acoustic version of one of their songs. Now, if you hear them, they are proper pummeling double kick drum, Scandi metal, or Melodeath, they call it. I don't think putting an acoustic version out is a move forward. I don't think that's not a progression. That's just like taking some of the channels away that you've already recorded.
I guess it's a nice. It is kind of it's a good way to experiment, as if the music you're creating can stand up to a change in style or genre, or a reduction in channels.
There's different genre, and again, I apologize because you've not been on the show before, and this is episode 144, so we've been knocking on for a bit. Very remiss of me, I do apologize. But there's a band called from Southend. I mean, they haven't been going for years. They're a band called The Big, and they're a ska band, you know, brass, the whole shebang. Brilliant band. And the singer was a guy called Ed Rome, who I've effused about him enough on this podcast that a friend of mine turns out knows him and offered to put me in touch, and I freaked out. I was like, no, I've spoken about him so much. But their second album, it's a ska album, as you'd expect. I mean, really good, and I'm not a huge fan of ska. But the second disc of the album was the same songs from the album, with every song done in a different style.
Oh, wow.
And I still think that's one of the best pieces of work I have ever heard in my life. Because, yeah, the Scar thing, there's only so far you can go. Like, that's going to make me unpopular. All the people with their like checkered hats on and checkered ties are listening to this going, you bastard. Believe me, they will pop up in the YouTube comments.
It's a rich tapestry.
Fucking isn't. But at least it's better than ska punk. But that don't worry. It's only if we mention Metallica or Megadeth or Pantera that the real nutters come after us.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone now commenting on this on YouTube Shorts, going, "Who are these?" Oh, we get people say ridiculous stuff, and I reply to all of them because it's fun. But yeah, so moving on from the big, because I've talked about them enough. But the other thing that I like about metal bands, I've come to realize, is a lot of the metal gigs I go to, especially in Finland, all the people in the bands are older than me. So if you want to make pop, you're done by 17, 18, if it's like pure pop. If you're going to make indie schmindy, maybe you get till you're 28 to have your first hit. If it's like metal, I'm not sure there's an upper end.
There's no ceiling.
No, I saw. Do you know the meme with the guy from Pentagram going, and he's like, I saw them in Helsinki, and I can remember just going, fucking hell. He's not the oldest person I've met. The oldest person I made friends with used to work with Alan Turing. Wow. So, a guy called Norman Sanders, who sadly died last year, he was like 98, wrote speeches for Harold Wilson. But I think the second oldest person I've ever seen in person was the singer of that band. So, yeah, good strong start there. And one of the things that I was thinking while I was preparing the clips for Mastodon is that you mentioned the complex storytelling there. I mean, did you get that by listening to the lyrics and go, oh, I think this, or did you have to go look them up?
No, it was kind of listening to the lyrics and going and also looking at the song titles as well, because there's one song title and I can't remember the exact. It's a very long song title because the song is called The Tsar, but it's then broken down into 4 parts.
Usurper, Escape, Martyr, and Spiral.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, okay, what is going on here? I need to kind of learn more about. I knew that they'd done concept albums in the past because Leviathan was about Moby Dick. And
that's got one of the best album openers of any album ever made.
Absolute stormer. And I was like, okay, I need to find out more about it. And then I got kind of, as I do, my brain was kind of like, need more information, more. So I really kind of dove into understanding what it was about, and then started seeing some of the concept art, and then some of the artists that had done tour posters for it. And I've got in my hallway, I've got one of the amazing ink illustration tour posters with Rasputin on it and a kid in gold kind of floating up in front of him.
It's clues, the subtle clues.
And it's kind of looking at all of that and just going, oh, wow, this is amazing. And it is, but you could just take it at face value and just go, this is a brilliant album with some slightly crazy song titles. So
those lyrics, obviously you have to think, you have to dig for them. My first choice, not quite so much.
He held open the legs of his boxer shorts so they could all get in. Oh. And when each and every one of those little cocksucking flies has got into his pants and they were lapping up all that maple syrup, he bent over and he put his head between his legs and he said in a very clear, impressive Ron Hubbard type voice, New York! And the booth and everything lifted up out of the parking lot and into the sky! Studebaker Hawk, yeah, yeah! Studebaker Hawk, Studebaker Hawk, Studebaker Hawk, yeah, yeah! Studebaker Hawk, Studebaker Hawk.
I never had you down as a Perry Como fan.
I mean, once I tell you who that is, you might go, of course it is, but do you want to have a guess at who that was?
I don't know if I dare.
Shall I just tell you?
Go on.
That's Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
Of course.
With their sort of concept album, Billy Was a Mountain, which is a song which is about 30 or 40 minutes long. And that it does have a storyline. And one of the things, it's about a mountain called Billy, and he's got a girlfriend who's a tree called Ethel. And they take on the American government. And if I was thinking like that story string with Mastodon, like that's some creativity. That's some kind of like thinking. It was a whole different thing in the late 60s, early 70s with Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. It was just...
thing that absolutely blows my mind about Frank Zappa, and something I only learned recently, was that he, other than cigarettes, never touched a drug in his life.
No, he was very anti.
That's him au naturel. And it's like, wow. I mean,
he was just like, I just don't need psychedelics.
No, it's just a fire hose of stuff. And it's just, yeah, his output, and incredibly talented artist as well. But I've always found it difficult to find a jumping on point with Frank Zappa.
Very much so. So I discovered this album, I was probably about 19. Long nights of sitting around at friends listening to music till the morning and all that kind of thing. And that's when I first heard this, and I'm yet to find anything else by Frank Zappa that I can really latch onto, because it's a lot. It's really a lot.
I find, if you say to someone, "Oh, what sort of music are you into?" and they say Frank Zappa, it's kind of, you're going to have to be more specific. Because that could be anything, and a mix of fusion of as well. So it's kind of, where to. If anyone in the comments wants to say, okay, right, here's your jumping on point for Frank Zappa to kind of give you an entry point, because I've seen some of his live stuff, and I think that alone's amazing, because I think just
that was live,
the performance and the musical skill the guy had, and how much of a kind of hard worker he was at making an incredibly tight but chaotic performance is amazing. And you look at the musicians that kind of went through his stable, Steve Vai and people like that, kind of incredibly. Whatever you think of Steve Vai, I think it technically he's
I think Steve Vai is one of those guitarists you can objectively say is good. You could have a 20 slide PowerPoint presentation and have it peer reviewed, and everyone would have to say, we can't say Steve Vai's shit.
No, the technical brilliance of the guy is amazing.
What career, though? So Steve Vai played with Frank Zappa,
and then
John Lydon,
and Whitesnake,
and John Lydon.
And that's covering all bases.
Have you heard his Scar album though?
What?
I say that I can't categorically state that Stevie Vai never made a Scar album. It's just I can't be that sure.
You never know.
You never know. But that album's I want to say it's batshit crazy. And I don't think that's being offensive about it. It's worth a listen once, and I say that with a smile, because do you know Emperor? Metal band Emperor?
Yeah. So
some Emperor, I think, is some of the best riffs ever. Absolutely ever. So I went to go and see them play a festival in Helsinki a couple of years ago, and afterwards I read the best review ever of Emperor live. It said everyone should see Emperor live once, but once is enough. So I think Billy Was a Mountain. The album's actually called Just Another Band from LA, but I think it's worth listening to, but maybe just once.
I would dig it out.
You're not going to put it on for background music while your family's having breakfast, right? Just no, not at all. Even if your kids are old enough to understand, like a man filling his boxer shorts with honey and flies. That has nothing to do with anything at all in the story. I just want to say the liner notes in the album. It shows them making a model of Billy the Mountain, which is like not used in the stage show. It's not in the cover artwork. It's just, no, we need to go deep with this. There's the concept. Right, here's your second choice. I say we only have 30 seconds. I couldn't clip that at 30 seconds because I couldn't have that riff without the release. I couldn't have the tension build and like not have the release. That would just, I'd walk out of here tense.
So that's Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age. 2004.
Oh, shit, really? 21 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that was, I guess it did two things that stuck with me. Is one, it felt like the first proper kind of post-grunge thing that really stuck in my head, and also introduced me to Mark Lanegan, because Screaming Trees kind of passed me by. They were a little bit too
sort of before our time.
They were kind of psychedelic pre-grunge, and I just there was Nearly Lost You, I think, was one song of Screaming Trees that
that's the
I
one
knew
that
of.
I know, yeah.
But I never really knew Mark Lanegan or anything like that. And then he kind of resurfaced as a member of Queens of the Stone Age on this album. And it was like, oh, who's this? What's this gravelly noise that's coming out of the speakers? Who's this guy?
We were scared of him. We went to V Festival in, I think, 2004. When it's one of those sets I wish I could go back to. There used to be a couple of songs from it on the YouTubes. But yeah, Mark Lanegan sort of strolled out for a couple of songs and he looked terrifying. He just stood there stock still, just staring.
His book is his autobiography is incredible.
I've heard that from a few people.
Only because it just doesn't let up. It's just unrelenting. And he was Kurt Cobain's heroin dealer.
Right.
And was one of the first people that went and checked at the house when Kurt Cobain went missing.
I didn't know that.
And didn't go and check up above the garage and couldn't find him. So his kind of connection to that scene, his own kind of journey through heroin addiction and losing people. The book's called Sing Backwards and Weep. And you kind of feel like that as you're going through the book, and his upbringing and how much of an absolute terror he was. He grew up in rural Washington State, kind of, a couple of hours outside Seattle, and just had a terrible, terrible childhood, terrible rural upbringing. And the immediate reaction to that was addiction and chaos. But then kind of having discovered Mark Lanegan through that was to then find his solo music.
I like Grave Digger song, was Grave Robber song.
Yeah, Grave Digger song.
Wonderful.
And the Bubblegum album is brilliant. And I think there's one called The Winding Sheet. I may be calling that something wrong, but just brilliant Nick Cave-esque albums of kind of sorrow and wailing. I never thought anyone else could fall into that category ever. I thought it was a category, well, basically of two, of Nick Cave and Mark Lanegan. But, Nick Cave, for all his songs, his voice is nothing like Mark Lanegan's. But I was exposed to a band a few weeks ago. There's a podcast I really like called We Dig Music. And they talked about an album by a band called Crippling Alcoholism, which is... It basically is these two guys who are in a math rock band, two different math rock bands. They got together to make the most miserable album they could ever make. And it's I don't like miserable music generally, but the singer's voice is the closest thing I've ever heard to Mark Lanegan, like almost eerily so, and it's somehow deeper. Wow.
It's somehow like it's not as kind of like seismic as the episode of... Do you ever listen to Iggy Pop's show on Six Music?
Yes, now and again, yeah.
Yeah, so he did one where he had... who sung The Piano's Drunk Again? Really...
We're
both sniffing our microphones.
There's Tom Waits.
Tom Waits, yeah. So Tom Waits and Iggy Pop on the radio at the same time. I think that's why my house has got subsidence, just because of that.
I don't know why Tom Waits never did an album called For No Man.
I Brilliant. And so quickly before we move on, the concept of this album?
So it is a journey across California and through Death Valley, and the radio stations that you're picking up on the journey across. And I think there's something to do with the dead body in the boot. I can't quite. I'm that may have just popped into my head and may not be true, but there is some kind of lower concept in there. But it was it's one of the few albums from that era that has stuck around with me and is still a go-to.
So far we've talked about you've had the sensible choices really. So you had the Mastodon concept. I had it is the Frank Zappa Mothers of Invention concept, as batshit crazy as it is, and then you've gone for Queen of the Stone Age concept. All quite well executed, I think, all very different. So I thought I'd choose a concept that just makes me think, why?
Standing By.
So if anyone listening to this, you won't know. James, I think we are exactly the same age. I was born in 76.
Oh, I'm 77.
Oh, well, very, very, very close.
Very close.
So
I'm holding on to that extra year.
So genuinely, these tracks, I don't know if they'd be in your ken if you would have heard them. Do you have a guess at who that was?
It's on the. I recognise it.
You recognise it?
I can't remember what the name is. Not coming to my mind.
It's a band called Manson.
Yes.
Yes.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Is it Attack of the Grey Lantern?
No, that's the good album.
Oh.
So Attack of the Grey Lantern, that came up on an episode of Beat Motel of Immaculate Albums, you know, where all the songs are where they should be. There's no filler. Everything flows that's the first Manson album. The second Manson album, they took the rather unusual choice of releasing a concept album based on A.A. Milne.
Okay.
So the author of Winnie the Pooh. And that single did pretty well. This is weird to think that things like that was number 7 in the album chart. And that's when people were still buying, 7 in the singles chart. And that's when people were still buying singles. Unlike the early 2000s where you could get to number 1 by selling a cassette. But I just put it down as just an oddity. It's a concept album, but it's pretty odd because why A.A. Milne? Generally, concept albums have like some darkness to them or something.
You know the urban myth about all of the characters from Winnie the Pooh being stereotypical representations of mental illnesses?
No, I didn't know that.
Tigger's got ADHD. Kanga and Roo have got split personality disorder. And you can kind of fill the gaps in Eeyore, like manic depressive.
So what's Winnie the Pooh?
I can't remember. This is where the analogy falls apart. Probably Winnie the Pooh is just an arsehole who refuses to wear trousers.
We'll make sure that ends up as one of the clips on YouTube Shorts. Winnie the Pooh I might change the title of the episode to Winnie is a Pooh with an arsehole who refuses to wear underwear. Brilliant. Okay, well let's move on to your next choice. Oh shit, I didn't. Now, this is a sort of... I have an inattentive... like a timer thing for inattentive people. I forgot to start it, so I'm going to set that up now. So we are 40 minutes... Oh, no, it doesn't work that way, does it? Hits. So we've got... This is great content, this is.
There's a Winnie the Pooh film from 2023 called Blood and Honey.
Now, that confuses me as well. I have spotted that, and... unless it's a homage to Blood and Thunder by Mastodon. Oh no, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I think I know someone who was in that. A friend of mine called Nick Field was in it because Winnie the Pooh slipped out of copyright protection. These people decided to make a horror film called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
I feel a concept album coming on. Yeah, I've just found that carescribe.io has got an entire breakdown of each character plus their mental challenges.
Right. So let's move on to your next song, which is this one.
Have become comfortably numb.
So that was Oasis.
Yes. Wonderful.
Tell us who that was.
I accidentally made a joke there and didn't realise that I'd had by calling it Wonderful. So that's Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd from the album The Wall. And I think it was probably the first concept album I was... My dad is a massive music fan and had all kinds of amazing vinyls that he still won't let me anywhere near. But one of them was The Wall, and he also had the film on VHS as well. And I think it was my first. I'm trying to think when it came out, or when I was aware of it. Was probably early '80s when I was kind of a little bit more aware of surroundings and what music was and that sort of thing. And I remember Bob Geldof playing the character Pink in the film.
I've not seen him.
It's very good, and it's kind of autobiographical as a split between Roger Waters' experience of live music and touring and his hatred for it, and a little bit of Syd Barrett and the kind of them processing over a number of albums of Syd Barrett departing the band and leaving a kind of big creative hole in the band. And it's I suppose you could call it a rock opera in terms of kind of the narrative and the performance and the stage show and the giant World War II bomber coming across the audience and crashing into the stage. And it is the kind of traditional, fitting in with things like the Who's Tommy and Quadrophenia to a certain extent as well, and a bit of a continuation of that. And it's about mental health and seclusion and isolating yourself and then kind of breaking free of it all and realizing that you shouldn't be hiding yourself away. You should be trying to kind of get out there. And it was the first album for me that was something that stuck in my head as a kid.
Yeah, it's quite... I studiously avoided Pink Floyd for many, many years until I thought I'm just being an idiot.
Yeah, I think that Pink Floyd to a lot of people is what Volvos are to bikers, where it's kind of that's and the punk movement in particular is what wanted to wash that all away, and the kind of the pompousness or the perceived pompousness and grandiosity of rock opera and these kind of big overblown performances and getting it back to basics. But I still think there's like, you look at some of the stuff Pink Floyd did, particularly live. You look at their, they've just re-released the Echoes live album where they went to the amphitheatre in Pompeii.
We've got a whole episode about that.
Played live in that, and there's one song in that, and it's fucking filthy. Like the riff and the breakdown is just like, this is awesome.
It was discovering the 4K transfer of that on YouTube a few years ago, probably not even that long ago, that made me completely redress how I felt about Pink Floyd. Because it's good God, I've played in a band that's been accused of ripping Pink Floyd off for about 18 years. I've never listened to Pink Floyd. But hey, I don't write the songs. But yeah.
Hey, I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here. There's a number of Pink Floyd riffs that sound very much like Metallica riffs.
Oh, let's hope that makes it to socials. We just need to add something about Dave Mustaine being an idiot, and we'll have and then Dimebag about not being able to play him. We've got the Holy Trinity there. Right.
There's I think it's something Blue Sky on this album. Listen to that, and then listen to Fade to Black by Metallica. And also listen to David Bowie's album, where he refers to leper messiahs. Good luck, everyone.
There's bizarrely the song "Comfortably Numb." I first heard it when the Scissor Sisters covered it.
Yes.
Which
And for ages, I didn't realize that was a cover. I hadn't kind of connected the two. I was like, oh, that's weird. They've got a song called Comfortably Numb too. Oh, it's a cover. Okay.
I need to make a note of that. I think that's
Absolute
actually. I'm just going to make songs I'm just making. Got a long list of possible top songs we didn't know were covers. Is quite a good one. Sorry, this is fascinating. Listen to me type.
I'd forgotten that Amy Winehouse's Valerie was a cover of a Zooton song.
Quite right. here's my third choice. Any ideas?
Fuck no.
That bass playing though is just
that's like Geddy Lee Rushified, super
Rushified.
Yeah.
Have you seen Russia Reformed?
Yes, like awesome pick for a drummer. Awesome. I know, like the Neil Peart kind of purists are going to go, but she doesn't have a penis. But it's like you watch her stuff, and there's a channel I follow called Drumeo on YouTube, and they get musicians, they get drummers in to kind of go, okay, here's a track without the drums.
Oh, remind me who the new drummer is.
I've forgotten her name, which is terrible.
Is she from South America?
No, her name is.
Because on the Drumeo things, there's one where there's one woman drummer that they got on who just everything she drums is better than the original.
Yes,
was.
I know exactly who you mean. It's not her. The new Rush drummer's name is. She's German, and her name is Annika Nils. She's very good. Like, from the school of Neil Peart, jazz, heavily jazz influenced, and it has made me think, maybe I do want to go and see Rush.
I went to go and see. Do you know Alex Bodie in Ipswich?
No.
There's a guy called Alex Bodie. I've known. He's played in bands for years and years and years, and he stopped playing in bands for a long time, and then he was always obsessed with Rush. He's written books about Rush, like books that you can go into Waterstones and buy. He's written them, so he knows his stuff, and he was always a guitarist. And they've started a Rush tribute band, and they're doing it like properly as a business. It's not just for the love of it. They want that to be their jobs, and they did what I guess you could call a warm-up show at the Smokehouse in Ipswich. So
nice,
like 80 capacity venue, and not really a Rush fan, but I went along. And I realised as soon as I was in the room that a room full of Rush fans, if you're playing Rush covers, is going to be the toughest audience any human being can experience.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of study going in to kind of completely understanding. Well, you missed this bit, or you didn't quite hit that bit right.
Well, apparently they didn't make any mistakes.
Holy shit.
So there's a long drum solo. I think it was like 5 or 6 minutes long, and the guitarist and the bassist went off, and they did something really cool. They came back on, and without anyone looking at each other, they just perfectly went back into the song, like so tight together. And I was speaking to my bandmate Rocky, who is obsessed with Rush, and I said, "How was that? Just like a drum solo, or was it like something specific?" And he said, "No, it was hit for hit, the exact drum solo from that song."
You have to. And I think that's the caveat that they've put in, is that they're not replacing Neil Peart.
Yeah.
They want to tour again, and they've found a drummer that they think can do it justice, but she's not there to be a carbon copy of what he did, because I think that's just setting too higher expectations.
It's not the same person, it's not the same influence. It can't be the same thing.
No.
We've hardly got any red left on the timer, so we ought to move.
Who? You didn't say who that was. We
didn't talk about my choice at all in there. That's NoFX.
Oh, awesome! I haven't heard NoFX for years.
This is the song that I was introduced by NoFX by somebody. They gave me a copy of, I think, Punk in Drublic, and said, and I'd heard sort of other skate punk, if you want to call them that, or like modern punk bands. And I'm fairly nonplussed by the whole thing. I said, what makes this different? And he said, their musicianship is exceptional. And that's a concept. Right, I can't really call it a concept album because NoFX have always done this thing where the best songs, they keep the best songs off the albums and release them as singles. It's like, I don't know if it's like an official thing, but it's like lore, LORE. It's like what people believe. And that's a song called The Decline, which was released in 1989, and it's 18 minutes and 19 seconds long. And it works. Saying like Mastodon and saying about Frank Zappa. It's not just some bands that have long songs or alleged concept albums are like, no, you've just played the verse too many times. It's not actually like parts. You've not. It doesn't build. It doesn't flow. It doesn't arrive somewhere. But The Decline really, really does. It's exceptionally good. And there's an orchestral version of it as well, which is on YouTube.
What?
Which totally works.
Wow.
Totally works. It's that thing again of a good song transcending the medium or the genre in which it's played in. But yeah, there you go. NoFX, The Decline. I just chose it because it's NoFX being contrary, because they're a very contrary band. So at a time when bands, especially punk bands, were like going back to 1 minute 40 singles, they're like 18 minutes.
Thank you for reminding me they exist, because there was a time them and Descendants I listened to a lot, because the bassist who's in my band was in a band called the Jeffs as well, and they were
Jeffs. That's such a great band name.
And they were into like NoFX, the Descendants, and that sort of stuff. So thank you for reminding of that, because I need to dig that stuff out and have a listen.
Right. So your final choice is this one. So that's Judas Priest.
You hear a roar of a motorcycle just about 15 seconds after that.
Who was that? Because I think even people who know. I taught this guy's grandma how to use an electric wheelchair.
That's an awesome story.
Her name was Nina, but I won't give away her surname because
Nina Eno.
And
That's
she
awesome.
refused to believe, this is when I was training to be a nurse, she refused to believe that I knew who Brian Eno was, to the extent she got her daughter to bring in a photo from home. This guy. But because it was the 90s, I knew who Brian Eno was. I knew what bands he'd. I knew everything about him. No fucking idea what he looked like. So he's actually showed me the picture. To be fair, that could have been a picture.
It's like when
anyone.
people swap the picture of Jesus in the Nan's house for Obi-Wan Kenobi and see how long they'll take to notice. So that's Brian Eno, and it's an album called Music for Airports. I can't remember the year it came out.
70s, I think.
I think it was it.
I don't know.
It was more recent.
I'm now looking it up. So this is one of those podcasts where you hear people searching for things.
Tappy.
78.
78, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Goodness. Okay. Wow. I probably came in. I discovered it in the 90s, I think, when I was working in an agency.
You didn't discover it when it came out and you were 2.
Yeah, no, it's immediately like headphones. You need airport music, son. You're going off the rails at 2 years old. And it was the concept is kind of the name of the album as well. And there's 4 tracks, and it's 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, and 4 of 4, and it's all just ambient washes and no kind of there's structure, I'm sure, but not a discernible structure when you're listening to it. And it is just there to be ambient music, which I guess at the time wasn't really a thing.
Wasn't a thing. I think arguably, I don't know Low by David Bowie very well, but I've just read a bunch of articles over the years that says that that might have been a starting point that led to Music for Airports by Eno, but it is genuinely an entire genre of music now, largely because of that album.
Yeah, and you have artists like John Hopkins and others kind of standing on the shoulders of Brian Eno, sometimes perhaps literally. Anything's a concept album, of doing this sort of thing, and that coming about. And that is still one of the albums that if I want to slow my brain down a bit and just go at a slower pace, I'll stick Music for Airports on and just kind of crank it up and just fill the room with wishy-washiness.
I think I need to...
I'd say wishy-washy. I don't use it in the term of being a bit shit. I use it
vacuous,
as vacuous. It's just a kind of... It's like an audible hug.
I need to revisit it. I mean, I do listen to ambient music, but it's always good to sort of come back to the seed, to the thing that started it all off. We've almost run out of time, so I'm going to have to play my last song, which now, after preparing the clips for this, after hearing your last choice, I couldn't really do anything other than choose this. Just make me need a wee a bit. So, we've never mentioned Jim Horsfield on this podcast.
Ooh.
And he worked for quite a while with this guy. Do you know who it is?
Is it John Hopkins?
It's John Hopkins. Yeah. So you mentioning John Hopkins just now, I could have like tried to pretend I was an actual podcast producer and go, cool, it's a nice segue there. But
yeah.
No.
My thunder's been removed. How dare you?
So that's, John Hopkins. And to put it into sort of context for this album, the album's called Music for Psychedelic Therapy. The two albums before it were arguably kind of, not exactly banging techno, not like, it was fall to the floor, some of it, but it was still very textural. I mean, John Hopkins is like, I'm not, is it synesthesia where like music, you hear music and it's a physical, I'm not really like that. But John Hopkins' albums before this are chewy as fuck. They are like thick treacle with hundreds of thousands and just texture and never-ending changes. It's so deep, so you really get your teeth into it. So when he released this album, I was a little surprised. I mean, it makes total sense. It's John Hopkins, but you can see a very clear line between Music for Airports and this. This is more like Music for Caves.
Yeah, if the airport was just a massive echoing chamber, and maybe had it run through some slightly filthy pedals.
Whereas this is quite literally recorded in a cave. These are, I think ambisonic recordings or special field recordings made in a caves in Taos. I don't know, or Ecuador. In Ecuador.
Oh wow! I did not know that. Hence the drippy noises and the slight bladder urgency.
Me now
brings.
needing to go for a wee. It is a lovely album, but I'm not going to put it on to psych myself up or to go for a run or something. But it is wonderful. It's got so much space to it, and I just think as a concept, I like it. So there's my deep musical insight. But we are also at the hour mark, so we're done.
We are done.
Any lasting impressions you wish to leave on the two people who might still be listening?
No, I think it is to go explore both ends of the spectrum and go back to. I think try and kind of force myself into Frank Zappa's world a little bit, and also perhaps afterwards listen to some John Hopkins in a cave to recover.
I meant to say earlier, you were talking about the first time you became aware of Frank Zappa. The first time I became aware of Frank Zappa was a clip somehow from British TV, but it was black and white. I know it's British because Frank Zappa walks up to the microphone, full band around him. He says, I just want to thank British television for letting us play this unlistenable shit, and then start playing a song, and it's sort of balladed, and then the singer of, I think it's the singer, I can't remember his name, the singer of, because he was never really the singer, so the singer of Mothers of Invention, big old rugby playing looking guy, just walks up and just starts screaming like down the microphone. Like, you're thinking, what is this? I want to find that clip.
Avant-garde as fuck.
Yes, there you go. Right, so just remains for me to say, I mean, if you're still listening at this point, then, well, partially more for you, but I appreciate your support. So please like, subscribe, and tell your friends and all that. And I'm going to say goodbye. James, do you want to say goodbye?
Toodle pip.
Oh, we ought to plug your podcast quickly. What's your podcast?
My podcast is called Big Bad Beautiful Brains. It's had Andrew as a guest, and it's about how people's brains work and don't work.
I think we've had a good slice of how brains do and don't work during this episode. So, okay, cool. I'm off. See you later. Bye.
Cheers.